Good afternoon. My name is Jake Hunsaker, and these are my colleagues Jared Maxfield, Greg Klein, and Samuel Belgique. We are excited that you, the executive team of Outerwall, have asked us here today to provide recommendations regarding EcoATM, its social initiatives, and some issues that it's facing right now. However, before we do that, we need to have a solid understanding of not only the company and its founding principles, but also Outerwall and its core competencies. Outerwall began in 1991 as Coinstar, an easy way to exchange coins for cash. This was rounded out in 2009 as Coinstar bought Redbox, and in 2013 when they purchased EcoATM. All three of these brands now are wrapped under the banner of Outerwall. Now, at first glance, none of these brands have anything in common except for one thing. All of them are based on the kiosk. In fact, the kiosk is so central to Outerwall's mission that in their mission statement they say it is their motive to become a leader in automated retail. We must maintain this focus as we proceed throughout our presentation today.
Now, in Outerwall's automated retail business, there are four initial stakeholders to consider. The first are the consumers, the ones who use the kiosks. The second are the partner organizations where these kiosks are located. The third are Outerwall's employees. And fourth are Outerwall's investors. Now, keeping these stakeholders in mind, Outerwall strives to use their kiosks to do what is best for their consumers. In fact, on their mission statement, or on their company website, they say that they are on a mission to make life easier for consumers. Now, in tandem with this mission, Outerwall strives to be socially responsible, do good, and to make a social impact. In their 2012 CSR report, Outerwall's CSR objectives included 1. Giving back to the community through charitable giving programs and company-sponsored volunteer events. 2. Increase employee engagement through their employee training and wellness programs. 3. Reduce their carbon footprint by transforming most of their Redbox fleet to Priuses and reducing their kiosk energy use. And 4th, by setting metrics for their shared value scorecard. Now, in order for Outerwall to continue to meet their CSR objectives in the future, they need to consider their future growth and their shareholders. But they will also have to do something transformative. And we'll see what we mean later.
While Outerwall's CEO characterizes Redbox and Coinstar, which represent almost 99% of the business, as strong, profitable, and cash generating, their rate of growth has been in decline. In 2011, Outerwall grew by over 19%. Yet last year, that was less than 5%. Much of the responsibility for new growth now lies on the new venture segment. Yet, 3 of those new ventures were canceled last year. Because of this, EcoATM has an extraordinary pressure to grow. Luckily, the company seems aligned to make that happen. There is a strong need for growth. There's cash to make it happen. The company is testing well and expanding its testing, and EcoATM already has a footprint of 1,000 operating kiosks. The question then, as one investor in the last quarterly call mentioned, why has the growth seemed a bit light? What's missing that's causing Outerwall not to push the pedal to the metal and expand to their goal of potentially 10,000 kiosks?
What's missing is the ability to overcome some pretty big roadblocks. In this case, the roadblocks that we're referring to are heavy legislation that has actually banned EcoATM from several cities. Baltimore, Maryland, banned. Riverside, California, banned. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Columbus, Ohio, potential bans on the docket. Other legislation that could damage the business is also being discussed. Now, you may ask yourself, why? Why would a city want to ban a green business? Why would they say not in our community? Well, the answer was best said by one Baltimore politician when describing public opinion. He said that the public believes that self-service kiosks increase theft. Think about it. If you lived in a place and there was a business that you believed was going to bring theft to your neighborhood, you wouldn't want it there. So you'd push back. The public has this perception that this is a dangerous business. Now, as we've done our research, we've found that there's a vicious cycle that happens. As crime increases, then the government is pushed to act. As crime increases, the media is pushed to act. And as the media is pushed to act, it pushes on the government, and vice versa. And on all this cycle going on, right in the middle, you find EcoATM taking the brunt. They're taking the blame. And for this reason, we believe that we need to take into consideration additional stakeholders. The additional stakeholders that we need to look at are the government, law enforcement, the media, and unfortunately even thieves, because their bad decisions are affecting our business.
Now this problem is a little bit like an onion. It has a lot of layers, so let's start peeling those back one at a time together. The most obvious problem perhaps is EcoATM's public relations issue right now. And in fact, we are underutilizing public relations resources. EcoATM only published 5 press releases during the entire calendar year of 2013. In addition, we do have success stories about how EcoATM helps catch cell phone thieves, but no one sees them because our online profile is incredibly low. In fact, our web presence is so minimal that we don't even show up on most major web traffic tracking systems. Now, we might even say that it lies more at the core. Maybe it's something operational that we need to fix. After all, the news reports talk about how thieves are able to get past our screening through fraudulent or fake IDs. And this also might be a little bit true. Samuel and I set out to do some investigative reporting work last week, and we went to our local EcoATM to see how far we could get in the process without obeying the rules. We wore the disguise of a hat and sunglasses after those 2 items were explicitly banned during the interaction, and still got through the entire transaction without a problem. So yes, there is something operational that probably needs to be addressed, but more than that, there's something at the core of this issue, something else that's wrong. We are in fact simply telling the wrong story. Now, we're not the only socially minded company to ever make this mistake. In fact, Simon Mainwaring, who's an award-winning marketing consultant, said the following. He said, more brands are waking up to social responsibility and doing good work through cause marketing campaigns. Yet too many still go about it entirely the wrong way. He says they're marketing ineffectively, and secondly, as a consequence, their positive social impact is not maximized. Joel McCower, who's chairman of the Green Biz Group, he agreed with this when he said that what's marketed as green is not moving the needle, and what's moving the needle is not marketed as green. So it's not enough for us to fix socially rooted problems as they arise. We have to instead take a preemptive approach to grow our business in a way that spreads the social benefits of our company. The bottom line is that we're fighting the wrong fight. We're trying to fix the problem using the wrong tool. We're fighting a crime-based misconception with an environmentally based brand, and it's not doing the job. And so we are pleased and excited today to recommend to you a complete rebrand of EcoATM. We introduce to you your new brand of SecureCell ATM. Now, SecureCell is founded on 2 fundamental principles. First of all, the need for our brand to address our biggest threat, namely governments and communities who stand in our way and perceive us as insecure. And second of all, a need for our brand to communicate to core consumers what it is our business does. EcoATM doesn't communicate what we do. Secure Resell does. We resell your cell phones.
Now, this rebranding and re-imaging is meant to have 4 positive impacts. The first is that it'll make communities feel safe, and that the SecureCell ATM discourages crime rather than invite it into their community. The second is that it'll open doors to future markets, and eventually those to where the kiosks are currently banned already. Third, it'll engage employees with a united sense of purpose and satisfaction. And finally, it'll increase profits through its growth, which will enable the company to maximize their social impact. Now, in order for this rebranding to work, which is a keystone solution to your immediate problem, it will need to be supported by improvements in the operations segment of the business, as well as your messaging and public presence. Without improvements in these two areas, the secure cell ATM will die and EcoATM's future growth will be stunted. We have listed many actionable items that you can implement in these two areas. However, we will discuss just a few of these crucial recommendations that we feel are necessary for this particular company to survive and grow in order to maximize your potential for a social impact. I'd like to direct your focus to the first bullet point on our handout. EcoATM already has a monitor on the top of their kiosk that could easily be used as a live monitor feed, which will allow consumers to see themselves as they are interacting with the kiosk. Not only that, but they'll also be able to see their own picture as it is taken. This will cause a psychological effect that will discourage thieves from wanting to use a kiosk in the first place. The second recommendation I'd like to have you focus is just 5 bullet points down, which suggests a tiered approval process based on the value of the phone and its rate of theft. By streamlining the process for low or no value phones and drawing the attention of the screeners to the consumers that are trying to resell the phones of a higher value, this will create a more strategic screening process for those cell phones that are a target for cell phone theft. And Jared will now talk about the recommendations for our messaging.
We believe there are three key groups that we should be addressing. First is the public as a whole. Second is the government. And third is our own employees. Now, for the public as a whole, if you look at the first bullet point under public presence, it says increase number of press releases and include theft prevention success stories. If the press wants to say something about our company, let's give them something good to say. Second is the government interactions. Oftentimes, a first impression is the most lasting impression. So before we move into a market, we recommend sending in regional liaisons who will work with the local government so they know that we're there to help them fight crime, as well as build their community economically. And the third group, for internal messaging, it's also important that our employees know that we still stand for everything we've been standing for. We still stand for doing all of those good things. But in order for the company to survive, we have to change our public presence a little bit.
We are excited about these recommendations and believe that they're feasible. We estimated that to reskin a machine will cost around $200. And from marketing estimates and marketing firms, rebranding costs between $90,000 and $1.5 million. Even if we're only able to save a city like Baltimore, within 2 years, our gross revenue should overcome those costs. Because as we rebrand, we'll be able to focus and build our strong history in automated retail. We'll also be able to highlight our CSR objectives as well. By rebranding, we'll be able to enlarge our social impact as we decrease the amount of crime. We'll also be able to have a greater engagement within the communities. And as we grow, the number of cell phones that we recycle will increase. Our vision is that by rebranding, SecureCell will be able to remove the roadblocks impeding its success. And at the same time, Outerwall will be able to learn from this experience as a whole. No longer will new ventures be terminated, but issues facing new acquisitions will be able to be recognized and solved in a way that will become a strength, a dynamic capability allowing Outerwall to grow its future profits and enlarge its social impact. At this time, we'd like to open up for any questions.
I have found that verbs cost money. Implement, increase, publish, improve, hire, enter, create. It's a lot of verbs. First, do you plan to make these changes in-house or will you outsource them? And have you made, there were some cost projections, have you made full cost projections for these various recommendations?
Oh, I'll take it. Sorry, I thought you wanted to say something. Our estimations do take into account, first of all, the cost of the rebrand, which was estimated for a business of our size right now. EcoATM has roughly 200 to 300 employees right now. The cost would be, as we said, about $100K to anywhere $1 to $2 million, depending on the extent that we want that to go in-house. We would keep it in-house because core to the rebrand is that our consumers are convinced that we stand behind the new brand. Now, there are other things that we would look at, such as hiring regional liaisons. All of those verbs that you said start costing a little bit of money. And those things are completely subject to what the company feels is appropriate for the timing within the rebrand. We recommend a rollout cycle of about 18 months to complete the rebrand process. And so, however we want to structure the cost within those 18 months would be decided obviously by the needs of the company. The key here is that we do a complete and total rebrand so that not only our consumers, but also the biggest barriers to our markets right now, the governments and communities, are convinced that we stand behind not just a new symbol, but also new operations, tighter security, in a new way of doing business.
And in-house or outsource or a combination?
Yes, we recommend in-house, but whatever would fit the business, absolutely.
So when you gave an example of the recognition of you showing up with sunglasses and things like that, where do you think the problem was that it didn't stop you in that? And then what kind of specifically were you suggesting to fix that?
I can take that.
So, from the beginning of the process to the very end, I wore the disguise of a hat and sunglasses, which at the very beginning says that you aren't allowed to wear throughout the entire process in order to have your photo taken. The fact that I was able to get through the entire process suggests that whoever was screening or supposed to be screening these images probably wasn't specifically looking for or looking carefully enough. And so one of the things that we might recommend is kind of like in the tiered approval process, is by setting some type of system so that certain phones of certain values would have more stringent security precautions. So that not that all phones are streamlined the same way, but especially those that are of a higher target for thieves, those that would be stolen, those would be brought specifically forward out to the screeners so the screeners would see and identify that as a possible or a potential theft phone because it is a higher value. And so that would draw the attention of the screeners rather than them looking at the same picture over and over again of the same style, not knowing which to place more importance on.
I might also add that it might be a matter of culture and it might be a matter of policy, that the screeners aren't catching some of the incongruencies between the ID and the person at the kiosk. Whatever it is, the rebrand will involve both policy and cultural changes. As he said, more stringent processes for more valuable phones. But in addition, quality assurance checks is one of our recommendations as well, so that screeners in San Diego are held to a certain standard as they're reviewed by their manager, so they're not letting those discrepancies through the system.
There's some opportunity cost in shifting from being an eco to being a secure. Did you discuss those opportunity costs, and how do you weigh those against the benefits?
So we found, and from different studies of what's important in a brand, 71% of consumers actually do consider green when making a purchase. But on the list of brand attributes of importance, green came in dead last. And so while there are certain customers that care a lot about green, and customers consider that in the mind, we believe that one, it's more important to focus on secure and on reselling the cell phone, as that's more important to most consumers. And two, we're not diminishing the fact that we're green. Consumers who want to recycle their cell phones because we're green can still do so.
So you have 18 recommendations here, which is good. Would you, and kind of getting back to the brand question, would you be open to implementing these 18 recommendations without the rebranding strategy? Because it seems like it's plausible to implement these without the actual rebrand.
Well, one of the benefits about rebranding and creating a new image is that you're able to leave your old self completely behind. Vivint is a prime example where they are now currently the second largest home security system in the country. They're a multi-billion-dollar corporation or company, And originally, a few years ago, back in the early 2000s, they received a lot of alleged complaints that were brought up to the legislation that caused them to have to pay hefty fines, and even in one case where they were banned in the state of Louisiana. Now, in 2011, they decided to do a complete rebranding and a re-image, where they basically presented themselves as a new company, and as a result, anybody who thinks of Vivint right now thinks quality, security, good company. And any perception of Apex Solutions, that was the name of the company beforehand, is not thought about.
Part of that is also the timing. If you're going to change now, shortly after the acquisition, would be the time to do it. The potential for growth, it's expected to reach 10,000 units, 10,000 machines. You're only at 1,000. It's a lot cheaper to change now than it is 3 years from now.
So you have a number of recommendations that are around changing, kind of more superficial on the surface, and a lot of process changes. Did you guys look at technology solutions of how to enhance the actual technology at the kiosk? And if so, what did you guys look at?
We believe we focus more on a lot of these changes that are more open to the public's eye. Some of them are back processes because we feel like in order to make a rebound work, we have to support it with better messaging and operations. However, a lot of the issue isn't that we're a bad place to resell your cell phone, is that there's the perception that we increase theft. Our recommendations chose to focus on the perception and just the areas that would make that work, rather than how we can improve the machines. While that would be great, the perception should be the number one area that we focus on as we improve and become secure cell.
And I might add to that. We do, however, give recommendations for the units themselves. For example, the reskin with the new brand. In addition, Samuel mentioned a few, making sure that the people at the kiosk see a live feed of their image on the TV screen above the kiosk so that they know they're being not only watched but also monitored real time. Not enabling the machine to allow users to skip through security warnings. That's something that is easily done. You just click next and all the security warnings go away right now. So there are software issues that can be worked through and hardware things that can change as far as the kiosk is concerned. But as Greg said, the focus is on solving the perception of the average consumer.
Well, at this time, we'd like to thank you all for your questions and appreciate all of the audience for listening to our presentations, our recommendations. We feel really strongly that as we go through this rebrand process, that Outerwall will be able to grow as a company and be able to learn from the experience. Thank you.